Welcome back to the Real Vegan Cookbook, and today we're making some delicious vegan kimchi, and it's a very special episode actually because it marks, oh there's a picture of me. I do have other people in that slideshow as well, it's not just topless pictures of myself. Anyway, it marks the release of the Real Vegan Cookbook, which I've been working on a lot recently. And yeah, if you want to follow along the recipe, then just click on the link in the description and it will have everything in there. And yeah, I'd love to get your feedback on it because it's something that I want to keep improving and making better. So yeah, just let me know what you think of it and I can keep making it better. And yeah, I'm super excited about it. Onto the kimchi. So for the kimchi, you want a Napa cabbage. And for some reason in Sainsbury's, they call this Chinese leaf, which is very non-specific. But rest assured, this is actually a Napa cabbage, as far as I know. So what we're gonna do is do a cut into it and only go, about halfway or so. And then we can just tear it like this and it opens up nicely. There we go. So then what we're going to do is just cut into the core, get rid of that. It smells so good. It's got quite a peppery smell to it. We'll just turn it over and we'll do a slice down the middle. And then we're just going to do it into fairly big chunks like this because it's going to shrink down a lot and it's nice to have a decent lump of the cabbage. So maybe around 1 inch or so, something like that. Depends how chunky you want it. Some people do have the kimchi just in entire sheets of the cabbage. But yeah, we're doing it like this. And I don't have a big bowl, so we're just gonna stick it into this pan instead. So this, I would say, is a small Napa cabbage. They get a lot bigger than this, but for our batch, and seeing as this is the only size they have in Sainsbury's, we're doing a small Napa cabbage. And with kimchi, there's so many different ways that people make it. So it was quite interesting doing the research and trying out different things. But this seems to be a balance of a traditional way of making it, but also something that doesn't take loads and loads of time. So we're gonna give it a rinse now. So this is partly to clean it, just get off any bits that we don't want, but we're also doing this so that the salt is gonna stick better to it. If there's any huge chunks, then I might just break them a little bit smaller. And it doesn't matter if you're being quite rough with the cabbage because it's gonna need to get squeezed quite a lot throughout this process anyway. So a lot of it's gonna break down. So let's drain that water out. And now we're just going to add some salt into it, which is just going to help it break down. And it's supposed to get rid of some of the bad bacteria that you don't want in it. Because what kimchi has is this, it's got a thing called lactobacillus, which is a type of bacteria which helps break everything down and give it that tangy flavor. And also that's what gives it the probiotic benefits, because kimchi is a super healthy stuff, great for your immune system. And I mean, if you look it up, there's just so many benefits. It's hard to know if everything's true. You know, with something like this, you're going to get some people saying some pretty wild stuff about how amazing kimchi is, but it's certainly very good for your immune system. And even if it wasn't, I would eat it because it tastes great. With the salt, we're being pretty generous with it. We want about 1.5 tablespoons or so. So I've nicely worked in the salt and we're just gonna push it down like that. Now let's just place it to the side and just grab your phone and set a timer for an hour. Beautiful. Okay, so it's been an hour now, and as you can see, it's really started to break down. And look at all the liquid that's coming out. That's all the water that's come out from inside of the cabbage. So we're just gonna give it a squeeze around, make sure that everything's all coated and that we're got the salty mixture on everything. And then we're just going to do the same thing again. We're just going to press it down, and then we're just going to leave it to the side probably for around half an hour, could do an hour, but essentially we're just going to leave it there while we do the other bits, and then we're going to add everything together. So the next step is we're going to get some water. I'm not normally this precise, but just for the video, you want about a 1/3 cup of water, and we're just going to stick it on here to boil. And while that's doing its thing, we're going to grate up a peeled potato. So this is a really cool little trick. Traditionally, what is used is this glutinous rice flour, but that's an ingredient that might be a bit harder to get hold of, and you can actually do it with a potato because the potato's got loads of starch in, and that's what you need from the rice flour as well. And you just want a medium-sized potato, probably around like 100 grams or so, probably not more than that. And this helps bulk out your sauce and make sure it covers over everything. I've tried making the kimchi without anything like the rice flour or the potato, and it just doesn't work as well. It doesn't carry the sauce as much. Now we've got the potato peeled, we're just going to give it a grate on the finest setting of a grater. Well, it always gets awkward, that last bit of grating. Yeah, that'll do. So the water's boiling now, and yeah, we want all this liquid as well. That's good. This starchy liquid is just what we want. And now we're just gonna mix it up. So very quickly, once it's all mixed in, you should end up with this kind of sticky paste, which is exactly what we want. And you end up with a very similar thing from using the rice flour as well. And we're just gonna leave that to the side for now. And only spilt a little bit, so pretty good going. Now we're gonna make this beautiful paste that's just gonna fill it with flavor and loads of stuff that's really good for you. So first on the list is a bit of ginger. It's about a 1-inch stick of ginger. I actually, when I was following recipes and trying different ones, there was a recipe that accidentally said to put 80 grams of ginger in, and I did that and it was insanely strong. This is about 20 grams of ginger. So yeah, just imagine 4 times the amount. It was very bitter. But with 20 grams, it's perfect. If you've been following this channel, you probably remember this, that the best way to peel ginger is actually with a spoon. It's much less wasteful, and it's just much quicker than using a knife or a potato peeler. Oh, I love the smell of fresh ginger, so nice. It's all gonna get blended, but we're just gonna cut it this way just to get through the fibers so we don't have any big lumps like that in the kimchi. In they go. Now, next on the list is some garlic. We want about 6 cloves of garlic, but again, this is another one that's just to taste. There's such a variance in kimchi recipes in how much people put in. But yeah, I think we should do all the garlic we've got here. I like it nice and garlicky. Chop off the ends, then give them a squish, and it should be nice and easy now to just peel off those skins, and you can get any little bits like that off. Then stick them in with your ginger. Beautiful. Now it's time for some pear. This is actually such a great addition. Some kimchi recipes have it, but quite a few don't. But it just adds an extra bit of sweetness to it, and it's just a lovely flavor to have incorporated with it. Some people add sugar to their kimchi, but I think if you add something like a sweet pear, then that just does the trick. So we'll just quickly core it and then stick it in with the other goodness. Now we've got an onion, and this is a sweet onion. I found this is actually nicer to put in than a regular onion because I guess the sweetness just makes it less harsh, and it's got a lovely little flavor to it. And we're just going to use half of one. That's a good amount. In it goes. Now we want some chili. So these are Korean red pepper flakes, and this really is the stuff you've got to use. It's about half as spicy as the normal chili flakes that you might find in a Western supermarket, but it's got a lot more flavor. It's more aromatic, it's more sweet, and if you want to make kimchi, it's really worth finding some of this stuff. So we're going to add in about a 1/3 cup. For me, that's the right amount of spice, but I would say that this is fairly spicy. So some people would add 1/2 cup, some would add 1/4 cup, but I'd say a 1/3 is kind of in the middle. Gonna stick that in along with some soy sauce. So a lot of the time here is when people use fish sauce in a non-vegan recipe, but instead of that, yeah, we can just use about a 1/4 cup of soy sauce, and that will do a similar job to what the fish sauce would do. Stick the lid on and give it a quick blast in here. Beautiful, so we can just leave that to the side. Now we're going to prep up some other veg to go in with the cabbage. So we've got some scallions / spring onions / green onions, whatever you like to call them where you're from. Get rid of the ends. Some people will just do them into big chunks like this, but I saw a really cool way to do it, which is where you just slice up into these a little bit first. And this is going to mean that you don't end up with like these really big rings of spring onion. It's just going to be a little bit more subtle on the spring onion flavor. I'm just going to do them about this sort of size, I guess inch-ish, something like that. So we'll do a couple of those, and that's as high up as we cut. And then with these ones, let's just cut them a couple times like that, switch them around, and we're just gonna roughly julienne these, which is where we just slice into them like this and get them into these little matchsticks. So yeah, definitely don't worry about doing everything too perfectly. That's part of the charm of it really, that it's just all this veg kind of chucked in together and just roughly chopped. Beautiful, there we go. We got our spring onions all prepped. Another thing people like to add is a daikon radish, but that's another thing that's kind of trickier to get hold of. So we're just going to do a carrot just to add a nice bit of crunch to it. And with this, we're going to julienne it as well. So you just chop off a little bit from the bottom, and then it gives you a little shelf that you can chop through and go for these slices like this. And then with these slices, we'll just do the same thing we did with the spring onions, which is where we come through and do them into these rough little matchsticks. Beautiful, that's all done as well. We are very close to putting it all in the jar and letting the fermentation start. Now it's time to rinse out our cabbage. I'm just gonna grab the light so you can see a little bit better. So we'll just stick this in here, and we've got another bowl, and just grab the cabbage, give it a good old squeeze, and stick it into here. And then with this cabbage, we're just going to add in a bit more water and just work it in to really wash the cabbage. This is actually one of the most common mistakes that people make with kimchi, is they don't rinse enough, and it means they end up with a really salty batch of kimchi, which is just either not as good or sometimes inedible. So really make sure you give it a good wash off, and you can always just grab a bit and have a little taste. So yeah, it's still tasting very salty, so we definitely want to give it a couple of rinses. And beware, these ones don't soak up the salt as much, obviously it's more on the leaves, so just have a little bit of both to see. Okay, that tastes good. It's still salty, but not overwhelmingly salty. So let's give it a little bit more of a squeeze, just so there's not excess water in there. Getting out the water means that it can soak up all of the flavor that we're going to add to it. So now we're going to come back over here, grab the light. We've got our potato puree sticky stuff here, which we're going to add in, along with, of course, our sauce. And let's have a little taste of it. Oh, that's good. Very powerful. Such a lovely thick paste as well, and just such a rich, deep red color. There's so much flavor packed into it. And I mean, it's good for you already. And some people do just eat it raw like this, but once it starts to ferment, it gets a more tangy flavor, which is lovely. And you also start to get the benefits of the probiotics. Now we're gonna grab our last bits of veg, so the carrot and the spring onion. If you're a legit Korean grandmother, you probably just go in with your bare hands and mix this, but that's a little bit much for me, so I'm just going to use the spoon because it really makes your hands burn. And some people will use like disposable gloves or something, but I think you can do the job fine with a spoon. Just need to take the time to really work everything together. So now let's just try a bit to see how it is. So at this stage, some people do actually add in a little bit of extra salt or maybe some sugar, but I'm very happy with how that is. So we're going to start putting it into a jar. And you want to get a mason jar that's got a lid like this, because you need to let the kimchi breathe. It smells so good. Once all the kimchi's in there, you want to just push down the sides and make sure that there's not any air bubbles left out on the side. There might be a couple tiny ones, but just get rid of as much as you can. And then level it off at the top. And you want to make sure you've at least got an inch or two at the top, because this is going to bubble up and expand quite a lot. If you fill right to the top, you're going to end up with kimchi juice all around your house, and that's not nice. Let's give this a little wipe up as well. Beautiful. Now we're going to add on our top. Just place this over and screw it down so there's a gap, so that there's space for it to breathe. And you want to store it at about 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. That's a good amount for it to be able to bubble up but not go too fast. I'd recommend every couple days just check on it, push it down with a wooden spoon so it's not bubbling up too much, and when it gets tangy enough and just how you like it, then stick it in the fridge, and that will slow down the fermentation process. Thanks so much for checking out this recipe. I've loved making this and just having it with everything. If you enjoyed it, please share it with friends and family, and I'm really looking forward to hear what you guys think of the new website, The Real Vegan Cookbook. So thanks for being here, and I will see you in the next recipe. Peace.